So the chickens are coming home to roost now for Rush Limbaugh. He apparently told his audience recently that they should adopt the label problem solver instead of just harping away about how conservative they are. So I'm not sure the specifics of that because this caller is going to get into it with Rush over that issue. But Rush is going to, tap dance around it and be a weasel and not be very upfront with what his argument actually was. But I do find it interesting that Rush Limbaugh, the king of right-wing talk radio himself, is like, I think I now prefer the label problem solver. So, this is Gino from the Bronx. I know a lot of guys like this where I'm from in New York. I know a lot of Ginos from the Bronx. So he was not having Rush Limbaugh backing away from the label conservative. Let's watch and then we'll discuss.
To the Bronx. Up next, Gino, great to have you on the EIB network. Hi.
Rush, I'm very disappointed in you, and in fact, quite honestly, I'm angry with you because of what you told that lady 2 days ago and what you called the other caller earlier today in the program. You're advising us, your loyal audience for 30 years that has stood by you and that have made you the Moses of conservatism, are now telling us that we should call ourselves problem solvers rather than conservatives so that we can try to get the political power that we need. I'm here to tell you it's time for you to go back to the way you were and take back what you said today, because I'm going to give it to you straight. I live in the Bronx. I'm on the front lines. I every day have to confront left-wing lizards and brain-dead Bolsheviks. And they give me a hard time every day, but I get right back in their face and I tell them, you go to hell, because I don't want my country, I don't want what my parents and my family and everybody I've ever known in my life to surrender to these brain-dead idiots that are going to destroy our country. And now you're going to tell me that I should back down and that I should somehow say, well, I'm not a conservative, but I'm a problem solver, because I should fear these fools that are out there. No, Rush, it's time for you to get back to basics. You got to be the same person you were 30 years ago that had my loyalty up until today. You have to be the Johnny Carson that you have been for the last 30 years and say, no. You get in people's faces. You tell them, no. You're an imbecile, you're an idiot, you're a jackass, and you're going to help destroy our country from within if we listen to the crap that you're trying to tell us. There is no such thing as being transgender. You're either a male or a female. There's no such thing as 37 different flavors of sexism. No, you're a man or a woman. And the same with the abortion issue. You gave that up a long time ago, and so did your other brethren on conservative talk radio, which I don't even call conservative anymore. Millions of Americans have died because of the schmucks that we have to pay attention to and the scum in the media that have turned everything that's bad and unholy into what is righteous, and it's completely wrong. So I'm going to give you an opportunity right here now, Rush, on your own show to take back what you said to that lady yesterday and earlier today. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to take that microphone away from you, and I'm going to be the Jay Leno to your Johnny Carson, and I'm going to be the one that's going to be the leader of the new conservative movement. It's either that or I go to the Trumpster and I tell him to stop giving you interviews, and that's it. It's going to be Mark Levin, me, and a handful of others, because now it seems to me that you have gone soft and you've gone weak-willed. The same way you criticize Republican slobs like Jeff Sessions and the other mutants who stab us in the back every time, and you don't bust their chops anymore. I noticed that recently. Now I'm going to do that to you, and I'm going to go on every other radio program until or unless you take back what you said, that we should not say that we are conservatives anymore, but that we're problem solvers. That's wrong. Admit you're wrong, and do it to me right here, right now.
I never said back down, and I never said not to get in their face. I simply said do not use a term to describe yourself that makes it impossible to have any kind of solution with these people. That's all. I'm not saying don't be a conservative. Wait a minute now, Gino. I didn't tell you not to be a conservative. I didn't tell you to back down. I didn't tell you to tell these scum to go soft on any of that. None of that at all. I'm simply... Do you not agree that just the name conservative has a little bit of a PR problem right now?
The PR problem is because left-wing maggots in the media have made it that way. But when we confront them, then they back down. That's the thing that you should be re-emphasizing like you did 30 years ago. You were my hero for the last 30 years, and now all of a sudden you have backed down because you have become weak-willed.
I'm not backing down, Gino, and I haven't been...
Thinks that you're going to buy an island in Greece and escape from these problems. I want to save America. If you don't, step aside and I'll do it for you. Sorry, Rush, you're not buying me on this one. I hate to say this, but after 30 years, my loyalty now for you is gone. And that chicken parmesan dinner that I was supposed to cook for you and your wife, you could forget that deal. Mr. Snerdley will get it before you do. You'll have to pay for that.
I wasn't aware that you were going to fix me a chicken parmesan.
Well, that was 3 years ago when I last called in, when I gave the speech about Hildebeest and why we should vote for the Trumpster, remember?
Yeah, well,
apparently you forgot because, again, you're too fat and happy now.
Well, you think I was for the Hildebeest? You think I spent the last 2 years advocating for the Hildebeest?
You basically, what you're doing is telling us we should surrender our title as conservatives.
I am not telling you anything.
So help save us to beat the evil empire. That's what you're backing down on.
No, I'm not backing down at all. I'm not backing down.
If you lived here in the Bronx, trust me, you would deal.
Gino, I am surrounded by a bunch of left-wing liberals here that are brain-dead, judgmental, mean-spirited, superiorist little butts. I'm surrounded by them. You can't avoid them everywhere you go.
But then you're telling us that we shouldn't even identify ourselves as conservatives. Why? Because some schmuck at CNN is going to give us a hard time?
No!
We give them a hard time. No. We take Jim Acosta, we take him out and give him a beating if we have to. We have to do everything that you used to tell us to do 30 years ago. But apparently now you've gotten a little too soft, Rush. It's time for you to step aside. Okay. Let me take the microphone from you for a few days, and I'll straighten out your audience.
I'll tell you what, Gino. Why don't we do that? You can have this microphone starting tomorrow. I haven't taken a vacation this year. You can come down here tomorrow. You can take the microphone, and you can deal with it however you want.
More than happy to do that, and then I'll reinstate your chicken parm dinner with you and your wife.
Okay, well,
you gotta come up.
I don't like chicken parm.
You don't like chicken parm? What? That's weird. I never heard that one before. That was so awesome. It almost feels like it was fake. Like that didn't really happen. That was so great. I mean, if you close your eyes and listen, it's almost like you're hearing two intellectual heavyweights going at it. I mean, that's like Chomsky versus Buckley there. No, I'm kidding. And Buckley wasn't even all he's made out to be. Okay, but anyway, that was so great. Now, I actually think Gino is somewhat correct. Now, obviously, he's a total wacko, and he's so thoroughly drunk the Kool-Aid of the far right that anybody deviates from it like 2%, and he just goes absolutely nuts. But a part of what he's trying to do there, I kind of respect in a weird way. So he's pointing out how Limbaugh, he was the king of conservatism, and then now, I guess recently he said, we should call ourselves problem solvers. And he literally gave his argument was, wouldn't you agree that conservatism kind of has a PR problem right now? And that guy Gino's like, yeah, but that's why we're supposed to fight, because we believe in this, and so there's no reason to back down from it, or back down from anything for that matter. If you think you're right, then duke it out. Don't cede ground. You know, it's like if somebody told me, like, all of a sudden social democracy started getting maligned, or populist left, the label populist left, or libertarian leftism. Like, if these ideas, these concepts, these labels, these philosophies started being maligned, like, my reaction to that would be, I don't give a fuck. You can try to malign it all you want. Let's debate it, and I'll destroy you in that debate because I have really solid arguments to back up why I think this philosophy is the best philosophy when it comes to politics. And so Gino's point is like, dude, if you really believe in this stuff, then don't give an inch on the, because some schmuck at CNN doesn't like that you're a conservative, you're going to back away from the label conservative. So in a weird way, I respect what Gino's saying. Obviously, I disagree with him, and I'm on the opposite end of the political spectrum. But in a weird way, I respect it. And he's actually right that Rush Limbaugh 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, he never would have said something like, oh, call yourself a problem solver because the word conservative has a PR problem right now. And this gets to the main point here. Gino's argument is like, hey, why are you backing away from it? Maybe you never really believed in this stuff in the first place. Might be onto something there, Gino, that, Rush Limbaugh is really just a grifter, and he found a niche, and that is, I am the right-wing talk radio guy, and so he doesn't really believe in anything. So he's been playing this role, he's been being a character. No, I'm not saying Rush Limbaugh doesn't believe in that right-wing stuff, because I'm sure to one extent or another he does, but there is a point to be made there that if you really believe in it, you're not supposed to give any ground. And he obviously did if he's saying, I'm not comfortable with that label. Now, on the other hand, so that's the area where I kind of agree with what Gino's doing, and in a weird way I respect it, even though he's a crazy person. Now, the area where Gino is wrong and actually Limbaugh is right is if Limbaugh is simply talking about strategy, well, then that's different. And then Gino's actually a complete and utter madman. So in other words, let's assume Rush Limbaugh really is what everybody assumed he is, which is a true Kool-Aid drinking far-right Republican conservative who just actually believes in the down-the-line doctrinaire views. That's like the stereotype of that worldview. Well then, if he comes out there and says, hey man, we need to call ourselves problem solvers because conservatism has a PR problem, it's possible that that's just like, I'm trying to give you the best strategy for us to get our ideas implemented. And if that means you got to give ground on a label, well, who gives a fuck? Give ground on the label because the greater good is served, because if we just call ourselves problem solvers and advocate for the same stuff, well, then we could actually win. And if all it takes is changing our label, but still pushing the same policy stuff, well, then why the fuck wouldn't you do that? You shouldn't be married to the label above the actual goals. So that's the other side of it. That's the flip side of the coin, which is what I think Limbaugh's perspective would be and what he's trying to argue. But see, this is what I mean when I say the chickens are coming home to roost for Limbaugh. Because he did spend decades saying never give an inch on anything ever. And then now when he says, hey, for strategic reasons, we need to give an inch on the label, now it's mutiny. And his audience, fuck you, you're a sellout, you don't really believe it, and what happened to the Rush from 30 years ago, I don't respect you anymore, and blah, 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 blah. But it is fascinating to see the infighting on the right, because honestly, there is a civil war going on the left. You guys are all aware of that. You're participating in that civil war along with me. But don't get it twisted. There is also let's face it, the right actually has many factions. I think as a general rule, they're usually able to be more unified than the left, because I think the right actually believes in electoral politics a lot more than the left. So the left, I've seen it 1,000 times where somebody's a leftist and they're just like, yeah, I just don't vote at all ever. It's like, wait, what? But you're a leftist, but you say I'm never gonna. Yeah, I just don't vote. Whereas if they're on the right, it's almost always like they view it as a civic duty. So they just believe in electoral politics more. So they're more unified at the end of the day when it actually comes to accruing power. But there are various factions on the right. And this really does get into the historic struggle between different factions on the right. So, for example, there's a House GOP group called the Tuesday Group, and there's another one called the Republican Main Street Partnership, and that includes the Senate too, not just House of Representatives. And what they say that they're like the more moderate conservatives. So they're the opposition to what now is the Freedom Caucus, which is the Tea Partiers, and the broader movement on the right, which is called movement conservatism. Movement conservatism. And movement conservatism is basically this amalgamation of people who you'd call traditionalists, neocons, the religious right, and the pro-corporate crowd, like the big business conservative crowd. And what you're seeing here is kind of like a little encapsulation of that reality. So you're seeing Rush Limbaugh kind of, at least in rhetoric, say, hey, we need to be more like the Republican Main Street Partnership or the Tuesday Group, in that we're not married to our labels, but we're practical in trying to get our goals. And then you have the Gino from the Bronx who says, who's a movement conservative, and he's like, no, we're not going to back down, and Like they're the real hardliners who are like, we're gonna fight on the things we believe in, and there is no room for kumbaya with the left in any way. So that was an interesting, really interesting clip. The final things I'll point out, because I have to. How could I not? I like when Limbaugh said little butts. I'm surrounded by liberal, left-wing little butts. I mean, I've never heard of a better example of like, dude, wrap it up. Like, your career is done. Like, that's how you... I get it, you're on radio, you can't curse and all that stuff, but you should have been way more creative than that. That's like the grandpa fucking talk. Like, oh, little butts. Oh. Like, who the fuck is listening to Limbaugh? It's Gino and 4 other people at this point. And then also, I like when Gino's like, I'm out here with left-wing lizards and brain-dead Bolsheviks! He screamed Bolsheviks so loud. And then, of course, there had to be a reference to trans people, because these are people on the right. I find it amazing, their obsession. There's this giant obsession with everybody who's on the right with trans people. Like, they can't... The amount of time I spend thinking about trans people in my life is nearly non-existent. Now, that's not to say I'm not on their side. I'm not an ally with them. I believe in freedom. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. You can get whatever kind of surgery you want to get. I'll call you whatever you want to be called. Okay? So, sure, I'm an ally. But I don't spend time thinking about it. Apparently, Gino's out there like, oh, trans people! They make me so angry! Why, Gino? Why? Relax. And then, finally, chicken parm. Well, you're doing so bad, Rush, that I'm not even going to make you your chicken parm anymore. You understand? You got to do better to earn the chicken parm. What? Yeah, I told. Remember when I called 3 years ago? Right, Rush Limbaugh, who's been pilled out since 1995. He's going to remember what you said 3 years ago? He doesn't remember fucking yesterday. And by the way, I do. I mean, I have obviously no evidence of this and no proof of this, but I just feel like he's so not with it and witty, Rush Limbaugh. Like, he's so slow almost now that I'd be stunned if he wasn't back on something. But anyway, I digress from that. Hilarious clip. This is one of those clips that I'll probably go back and watch like 3 or 4 times because it brings me joy.